Hello and welcome to Connect. I'm your host, Randy Shabilo. On today's show, we'll have retiring Saskatoon Police Chief Troy Cooper, as well as the Mayor of Warman, Gary Filipchuk. As always, we'd like to connect with you. Follow us on Facebook at ConnectYXE, catch past interviews on YouTube, email us at connectyxe@gmail.com, or leave a message at 306-665-3796. Saskatoon's Police Chief Troy Cooper has been with us for about 5.5 years and is retiring here the end of January now. Wanted to invite him in and give us a little bit of a recap on that career that he had in the city as a chief. Thanks so much for coming down.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Randy.
I want to talk a bit about you and your career. Started in PA and then ended up here.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with policing to start with?
Well, I don't know. I guess when I was a kid, I'd watched a commercial for the Marine Corps, and I saw the men in uniform and with their white gloves, and I thought that was very noble. And I just thought the role of a police officer in the community that I came from was one where people go to them for help, and they were very much appreciated, I think. And so I was really attracted to that. And so when I was very young, I joined when I was 21. I joined the Prince Albert Police Service in 1987.
And some of that work that you did there obviously led you into a number of different departments.
Right.
I know we had one photo of you doing some recon, I guess it would be.
Yeah. Well, the way it worked in Prince Albert, at least, was when you started, you were a special constable. And so I didn't have any training. But I got a uniform and I got a training officer, and they had me delivering prisoners from the cell block to the courthouse every day. And I did that for about 6 or 8 months, and then they trusted me to deliver some subpoenas to people by myself. So I finally got a chance to be out in the car by myself. Still no training whatsoever, but I delivered subpoenas, and then I actually went on patrol. And I still hadn't gone to police college, but at the time, if you could afford a baton and you could afford a flashlight, they put you in a car with a partner, and out I went. And so I did that for 6 months before I went to police college. So I was a very experienced guy in police college. And then, of course, the different units that we have, I worked major crime, I worked in drugs. I spent about 8 years in patrol, 8 or 9 years in patrol before I did any of those things. And then I ended up in administration from there, so which is a whole... just a different side of policing, absolutely, altogether.
And that led you to Saskatoon with the position of chief here. What would you say you've encountered and had to look at differently as the world's evolved over the past 5-6 years?
You know, policing has had a lot of challenges, I think, in the last 6 years. Of course, all industries have faced COVID and all of the challenges and the impact that's had on employees and human resources and policies and stuff. So that was a challenge in itself. But we also saw some big changes in the world with the murder of George Floyd, for example, and the calls for reform, the calls for defunding the police that came as a result of some of those movements. And that was very challenging. So we had to sort of, over the last number of years, take a look at what our role was in the community and make sure that it's exactly what the people who were serving wanted it to be. So we've done a lot of retrospective kind of work over the last few years.
And you bring a different perspective and a unique one with your Métis ancestry. How has that played into the role that you're in?
You know, to be honest, I think that any kind of different perspective I have would be more from my family members. So I have First Nations grandchildren, and 3 of them are little girls. And so when I think about the experience of First Nation girls, I don't have that firsthand experience, but I do have someone in my family that I love very much that does experience the world in that way. And so I think it's allowed me to perhaps include the community more in some decision making, bringing the community to policing. We have an Indigenous Women's Advisory Circle in Saskatoon now that we created, so that the women from the community that would have naturally had a voice, would have traditionally had a louder voice, can be part of the decision making that we have. And so I've done some of those things.
And the budget recently passed with Saskatoon, I think one of the most prevalent police budgets in history. And that's because the city's growing and the
Right.
calls for service are increasing.
Yeah, so every year as the city grows, not every city faces this, of course. Not every city is growing at the rate Saskatoon is, and so it's a bit of a challenge for everyone that works here, is keeping pace with that growth rather than chasing the population and trying to or risk falling behind, I guess. And so we have some additional staffing because of that, but we also have some alternative sorts of policing models that we're trying to make sure we have resources for. We have a group we call the alternate response officers. They're professional trained officers, but they're not fully trained police officers. They don't carry a firearm, for example, and they do more community sort of focus work. And when you look out into what you're seeing in the street now, like in the community now, you see a lot of people who have complex needs. Perhaps they're homeless, and that requires a bit more of a community response. And we're hoping that those sort of alternative policing models might be more appropriate than just adding more police officers all the time.
And the level of service that you're providing to the community has become a little more diversified. We have the community mobilization unit,
Right.
a little more targeted and focused.
Yeah, so we have areas of the community that are under a lot of pressure, and we find that if you're present in that community and you get to know the community and you get to know the people and the risks and the resources that are available, you do a better job of policing and keeping people safe. And so we have this community mobilization unit that does just that. So if we can keep them in one place, let them get to know the good, the bad, and the ugly of that community, they do a better job. And so that's one of the models that we're trying to put into some of those areas that are under a lot of pressure.
I think what we've seen as residents in Saskatoon is that the proverbial ball has moved down the field quite a ways in terms of where we were 25, 30 years ago to where we're at now. What would you say as your impending retirement is on the horizon are some high water marks, some good memories that you're leaving with?
I think we've done a great job of professionalizing policing over the last few years, and that's strategic planning and business planning and all that stuff. But along with that comes some notable sort of accomplishments. We have a unit that just deals with hate crimes, for example, in Saskatoon now. That adds a level of investigative capacity that didn't exist before. We've got body-worn cameras, which is incredible. First large service in the province to have body-worn cameras. We have the different units that we just discussed. And I think, just the quality of staff that we're still able to attract. We haven't had any difficulties with recruitment that you'll see in some other industries. I think because of the professionalism of our police service and the fact that we're located in Saskatoon, an incredible community here.
When you look at how we compare nationally, are we in the middle of the pack in terms of our recruitment and retention and where we're at for a return on investment, if you will?
I think we're industry leaders in a lot of those ways here in Saskatoon. We still have a ways to go with some of our recruiting targets, for example, but 1 in 4 of our frontline staff is female. We've got some senior executive officers that are breaking barriers in that regard. We have an expensive police service, absolutely, but when you compare ourselves to other services that are similar size with similar crime environment, we're doing quite well. We're fairly lean in terms of resources and expenses.
Are you seeing Saskatoon in terms of Canadian cities on the whole, generally speaking, a safe place relative to other major centers?
We look at offending rates and we look at victimization rates and things like that as sort of ways to measure the impact of crime and how it's felt in the community. And not only are we doing really well in terms of comparison against Saskatchewan as a whole, but we're about at the Canadian average. And for a Western Canadian province, northern part of the province, that's incredible, I think. And we've also improved a lot in the last 4 years. We were always number 1 or number 2 in Canada for large cities as far as crime impact since 1998, and we started to see that improvement about 4 years ago. And so it's changed. So the investment that we've made has actually reduced victimization to levels we haven't seen before in Saskatoon. And that's hard to believe because you see on the news, you hear about individual crimes, and I don't want to take away from that. But as compared to other centers, we've improved incredibly.
It's always one thing to try and look at stats and data of things that have happened, but in terms of the investment into policing and properly funding and training, that we can't measure what you prevented. And I think the only barometer that we use is the investment into the community. People still moving here, so there must be a desire for that. I've heard a story about a retired canine dog that I understand it's quite a change for an animal to do police work, and the people that adopted it ended up going to Hawaii with it and frolicking in the ocean. Your impending retirement, will you be frolicking in the ocean or the lake somewhere, or what do you have plans
That's
for
your
it?
nice way of calling me an old dog, put out to pasture. So I really enjoy a lot of things Saskatchewan has to offer. So ice fishing and snowmobiling and those sorts of things. I'm a cold weather person. Hockey is, my whole family's a big hockey supporter, and so our holidays, our trips will be out to watch the Oilers. And certainly there's a lot of hockey a lot closer than that. So be a busy winter for me.
And not to forget the cultural neck bone eating champion,
Yes,
not once but a number of
Three
times.
times, yes. I don't want to bring that up. I'm trying to be humble about it, but I am the 3-time neck bone eating champion at the Fall Festival.
Can't take that away from you.
That's right.
What would you say for the incoming chief in terms of some parting words that you would offer advice, or if I could do it over again, I would?
Yeah,
How would you answer that?
It really depends on their experience, and so getting to know the community is really, really critical for any police chief, but also getting to know the service. I think I invested a lot of time in Saskatoon, being present in the community, and I if I could do it again, I think I would try to hold up the officers that work at Saskatoon Police Service more frequently. They're incredible and they're heroes, and I've just been amazed to be able to work with the folks that we have there. So I think the new chief should make sure he's got one eye on the community, one eye on the service, and he'll do well, or she'll do well.
I think that was visible at a number of the awards ceremonies that I've attended for the commendation medals that were awarded. Remarkable service,
Yes.
and starts with your leadership, and I want to thank you for that. Best of luck in your future, and maybe we'll do this again, get a little bit of a snapshot. Where is he at now?
Right on.
Good.
That sounds great, Randy.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.